Hello, everyone. This is Tommy at World at War Comics. Thank you for joining us today. We have another amazing guest. But before we get into that, please hit that subscribe button. Ensure that you hit that ring bell. That way you're notified every time another interview drops or another video with amazing content. Today's episode is brought to you by Cien Chilies, CIENCHILES.com. Go to cienchilies.com for all your hot sauce needs. I go there. I make sure that I always have my habanero, always have my jalapeno, and always have my Thai bird, which is my personal favorite. Also, at checkout, if you use comics in checkout, save 15% off your total order. That's more than saving on the tax. That pretty much takes care of some of the shipping as well. So amazing family that owns this company. Please go support them, and you're going to get some incredible hot sauce. It's also brought to you by Comic Crusaders. Go to comiccrusaders.com to get all your movie, comic book, and music reviews. comiccrusaders.com. You can't go wrong. I'm a contributor to Comic Crusaders, and I love going there for all of my information on what's coming out and what to expect. comiccrusaders.com. All right, without further ado, today's guest is Austin Hough. He is the owner of Power Comics, and he is the creator and writer of The Masters. If you love Bronze Age comic books, you're going to love this comic book. It's absolutely incredible, action-packed, amazing character development, incredible stories. And if you're my age, close to 50, and you want to remember how comics used to be, this is an amazing brand of comic books to do just that. Or if you're younger and you want to know what it felt like to hold a brand new comic in your hand that took you back to the stories and that time, you're going to love this comic book. The Masters, Austin Hough. Without further ado, here's Austin and I. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the World at War Comics podcast. Today, my special guest, Mr. Austin Hough. Austin, thanks for joining, man. I don't even know how I found out about you. I don't know if I was going through something and then all of a sudden it popped up and I was starting to look and I was doing a little research and then I fell in love and then I reached out to you and I don't know, man. Here we are today, but I have to tell you, Austin, man, Masters issues 1 through 3 are a masterpiece. Thank you for sharing them with me. Cannot wait for issue 4, which you could get on Kickstarter right now. But anyways, how are you, man?
I couldn't be better, man. You know, there are no coincidences, Thomas.
100%.
I don't believe in coincidences.
True. I don't either. Either, Austin.
That's great, man. That's great. Glad you're digging it.
Oh, I'm so digging it, man. But before we get into Power Comics and the Masters, because we want to kind of end there, I would love to go back in time, Austin. If you could kind of give me your history in comics, like when did you pick up that first comic and when did you get the bug for comics in general?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in '69, essentially the year the Bronze Age of comics started. Mm-hmm. Graduated high school in '86, essentially the year that the Bronze Age ended. So I consider myself a Bronze Age kid.
Yeah.
So in 1973 or 74, again, it was a different time back then, right?
Yeah.
I'm about 4 years old, 5 years old, living in the near west suburbs of Chicago. I'm over at my grandma's house visiting her. She's actually babysitting me. And she gives me 50 cents, excuse me, to walk down the street, like this busy street in Chicago called Ogden Avenue. Go all the way down. I mean, I must have walked 4 city blocks by myself as a 4 or 5 year old kid. 50 cents, and I bought Defenders number 18.
Oh, wow.
Cover by Gil Kane. Interiors by Sal Buscema and inked by Dan Green, I believe. And I'm trying to remember who wrote the story. I think it might have been Roy Thomas.
Yeah.
And I bought a candy bar with the other 25 cents. It was a marathon bar.
A marathon.
And those marathon bars were like 12 inches long. They had a ruler printed. They had a ruler printed on the wrapper. And their tagline was "Marathon, it lasts a good long time."
Yeah.
So the candy bar is gone.
Yeah.
But the comic book is still in my collection.
You still have your first comic book?
I do.
That is incredible, Austin. I don't know
Isn't that crazy?
People who have their first comic book, to be honest.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I have my first comic book. And from there, you know, I was in the generation where we had the 67 animated Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
We had all of those crazy Marvel, Hulk, Submariner, Iron Man, Captain America, like Clutch Cargo type of animation. We had Batman. We had all of those in reruns along with Adam West Batman.
Yeah.
And then in 73, we get Super Friends.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then we keep getting more, like Challenge of the Super Friends and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Yeah.
And all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah. So, and then we had amazing action figures at the time. We had the Megos.
Yeah.
So, I was a collector of Mego and Big Jim and G.I. Joe and all that stuff, but mostly Megos. Now, you fast forward to about 1996, I think it was. I had been married for a couple of years, had a child, second baby on the way. And my brother, who was 7 years my junior, calls me up and says, "Hey, you're not going to believe what I found in Mom and Dad's attic." And I said, "What'd you find?" He's like, "I found all your old Megos."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "No way." And I go over to my parents' house. There's this huge box. It was like the box that would fit a trench coat from J.C. Penney.
Yeah, yeah.
Open it up, and there's maybe, I want to say 30 action figures in various conditions, like stuff that looked like I just took it off the card in 1982.
Wow.
Right, and never played with it.
Yeah.
And then figures that were just torn to bits.
Yeah.
And then we found the Batmobile, the Bat Cycle, the Mobile Bat Lab, the Green Arrow car, the Hall of Justice, the Spider-Man car, Captain America car. We found all this stuff. And next thing I know, I was recollecting Mego.
Yeah.
Next thing I knew, after doing research online for Mego back in 96, 97, like infancy of the internet, right?
Yeah.
I found guys who were actually making custom Mego action figures.
Oh, wow.
And I had always wanted to do that. Yeah. So Reader's Digest version is I started doing that. And today, about 650 customs later, true story, I have, probably 700 and some Megos in my collection, original, including customs.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
Back in 2018, I started the Custom Mego Hall of Fame, where it's a Facebook group that I run, and we induct every year Mego customizers and also actual custom Megos themselves, individual figures and play sets.
That's so awesome.
As a place to honor, people who kept Mego alive, essentially, is what everybody did. Wow. But the next phase was I started creating action figures of my own characters.
Oh, how cool.
And I created the masters, the villains who are the masters. I made them all in action figure form.
That is so cool.
And typically the process, Tom, was that I would make an action figure and I would post it online. Everybody would cheer and say, "Oh, what a great job." And then I'd move on to the next figure.
Yeah.
The problem was that nobody knew who these characters were except for me.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, well, I could post these and people will say, "Wow, that's great, Austin, but who the hell is it?
Yeah.
What does he do?" I'd be the only guy who knew what he was doing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I started to create origin stories for these guys. I had their names. I had origin stories now. And all of a sudden I was like just chatting with a buddy of mine and said, "God, I think I've got a really good idea for a comic book story for these characters."
Yeah.
And I want to put them in the Batman universe. And I want to do this like a Brave and the Bold from the 70s feel. Like every villain he fights. So there's 5 villains. We'll have 5 chapters. And every villain he fights, he has to bring in a guest hero to fight him.
Yeah.
So Batman will bring in Green Arrow to fight my character's surreal ordeal, and so on and so forth. Next thing I knew, I was writing this huge comic book series that ended up being 5 issues long.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is pretty good. But, again, I'm kind of, partisan when it comes to that. Of course, I think my work is good, right? I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
It's kind of like people who think they're funny. Yeah. Everybody thinks they're funny or they wouldn't tell the jokes they tell. It just is what it is. Doesn't mean you're funny. 100%. It means you think you're funny. So I reach out to a buddy of mine, Art Baltazar, who is a DC cartoonist. And he's been a friend of mine for, man, a long time, probably going on 20 years or more.
Yeah.
And we go out to lunch like we typically do. And I showed him the action figures. I read him the plot summary, and he's like, wow, this is great. And I said, yeah, you know, Batman story, right? He's like, yeah, this is great. He's like, I'll introduce you to the publisher of DC Comics at C2E2 in a couple weeks when everybody's in town.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you would do that for me? He's like, yeah, I mean, I'll introduce you. I'm not going to say nothing more than that, you know, because I'm not going to put my reputation on the line. I'm like, okay, Art, that's cool.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks later, right before C2E2, this was in February of 2020, the publisher of DC Comics, Dan DiDio, is no longer publisher of DC Comics.
Yeah, Dan.
And then a couple days later, C2E2 is over, and everything's locked down with COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here at my desk, and I'm like, okay, I've got this script. I've got these awesome characters. I've got a professional artist who thinks what I've done is worthy of being published.
Right.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
So that's when, you know, I'm thinking, what can I do? Do I go to Marvel? Can this be a Spider-Man team-up kind of a comic book? Can I change the characters out?
Yeah.
You know what? At the end of the day, I thought I have to do this. And I decided the best way to do it is to incorporate my own publishing company and start a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And, you know, pretty much we're on issue number 4. You know, not only are we doing the Masters, but I've also picked up other licenses from other companies. We're working with Super Joe Unlimited.
Yes.
Which is, I'll tell you, we just got our first inked, colored, and lettered page. The first page.
Yes.
When you open up, like when you open up the Masters, just for example, that's the first page you see, right?
Yeah.
It's just this big bam right in your face.
Right, right.
Well, Super Joe is going to be very similar. We just got the first page today, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I swore everybody on the team to secrecy. I said, we can show any other page when they're done.
Yeah, not that one.
But the first page, the whole point of the first page is to knock you on your butt.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're sitting down, you get knocked off your seat.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? But we have so many ideas and so many amazing artists and writers who've joined the team. We're looking at horror comics. We're looking at mystery and suspense. We're looking at science fiction. Yeah. We're looking at adult humor.
Yeah.
You know, not like sexy adult humor, but adult humor kind of like Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Or South Park or The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of push the boundaries of taste.
Yeah.
But they're not, you know, pornographic as you see a lot of these comic books are now.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they have their genre.
That's their lane, right? That's their lane.
They have their lane. Not a lane that I'm in. You know, I'm over in the 1970s lane, you know.
Which I love, man. I love that lane.
Right. I'm in the Bronze Age lane. I'm over here on the right next to silver and gold.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at with the Masters. We're on issue 4. It's kickstarting right now.
Yep.
If people missed the issues like you did originally, there are catch-up levels where you can get a copy of each. Yeah. There are always 2 covers to every issue. Like here's, you know, cover B from Bart Sears, cover A from Stephen Butler, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the origin of the whole Power Comics company.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Again, thank you for sending over the first 3 issues. Like I said, I did go on Kickstarter. I did do the catch up, so I will get all 4 of mine, which I'm super excited about. But man, I just fell in love. The other unique thing is the people that you're working with and the people that you're surrounding yourself with. I mean, some of these names, man, are just insane, Austin. I mean, let's just go through them, right? You have Arvil Jones, you have Bob Allman, you know, Joe Staton, Bart Sears. I mean, I could go on and on. Tom Morgan, Steve Butler. I mean, you have surrounded yourself with some absolutely incredible talent that have been in the industry for a long time, from Marvel, DC. What else did we see in there? We saw Omnipress, Xenoscope. I mean, That's pretty impressive, man. That is incredible.
Yeah. Well, first thing I did was I thought to myself, okay, I better hire the best artist to cover up any shortcomings I have with the story, because it is my story,
that's smart.
right?
That's smart. That's smart.
Smart, right?
Yeah.
I'm always thinking, right? Always thinking. But
Yeah.
what really happened was, it was 2020, and I started reaching out to people that I knew who were doing something similar, like making comics and kickstarting them.
Yeah.
And I would pick their brains, and every one of them would give me one or two more people to call.
Oh, wow.
And I would call them, and they would give me a couple of people each. And I just kept reaching out and talking to people, getting different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I came to a fellow that Michael Finn from Liberty Brigade.
Yep.
And I asked him, I said, hey, man, how did you get all of these great artists? And he said, well, I've kind of known them over the years. I used to put on Baltimore Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so you had an in. That's cool. And he's like, yeah, I had an in. But you have to understand, right now with COVID, most of these guys are looking for work. They're looking for things to do.
Good point. Yeah.
And they're like, do you have a contact of anybody in the business?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I actually do. And he said, who is it? And he said, well, Joe Rubin. I said, Joe Rubenstein. I met Joe and Alex Saviuk at a con a year or two earlier, and we had stayed friendly over email and Facebook. And he's like, reach out to Joe and ask Joe if he'd like to be involved in the project, and then ask him if he could help you get a hold of like 2 or 3 guys that that he's friends with.
Right.
And say, hey, Joe, I'd like you to ink covers by this guy, this guy, this guy. They happen to be Alan Weiss, Kerry Gamble, and Ron Wilson.
Yeah. And
wouldn't you know it, all 3 of them came on board.
That's incredible.
So I reach out to Joe, and he honestly is the conduit that helped put this all. Everybody's connected pretty much through him, and I can't thank him enough. I mean, I'll never be able to repay him, for what he did. But I remember I sent him an email bright and early in the morning. Now I'm in Chicago, he's out in LA, and almost instantly at like 5 in the morning he responds. Wow. So I was just getting up, and he was probably getting ready for bed.
Yeah.
Because all those artists out there, and you know who you are, you're all freaking vampires. Okay? You're all vampires. I'll be up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'll get an email or a message from Tom Morgan out in Los Angeles. And I'm like, I know that cat has not gone to bed.
Yeah.
It's not like he's waking up, Tom. He is like, oh man, I'm tired. I'll like send him a message. Hey man, you got a quick second? He's like, oh dude, I'm exhausted. I got to go to bed. And I'm like, bed? I just woke up. So Joe immediately says, hey man, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Who do you want me to reach out to? And I said, Alan Weiss, Kerry Gamble, and Ron Wilson. I want them to do covers, and I want you to ink them.
Yeah.
He said, no problem. Send me an email message that you want me to forward to them. I'll do it. What more can I ask for, Tom?
Yeah, that's incredible.
The next day, Alan Weiss sends me an email. Now, Alan lives pretty close to me. He's in Chicago as well.
Okay.
And he's like, wow, man, this sounds like a great idea. Do you have time Sunday night, say around 6:30 for a phone call?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Alan Weiss wants to call me? Like the Alan Weiss?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I ain't saying no to Alan Weiss. He calls me up. We talked for 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And at the end of the conversation, I have to remember, Tom, I was going into this wanting to get big name artists that I loved as a kid, as a teenager, growing up, who mean a lot to me, like Alan, Kerry, and Ron and Joe.
Right.
I just wanted them to do covers because doing the interior pages, man, that was going to be expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought, okay, if I can get big names to do the cover,
right.
But on the inside, I've got, still quality artists, but lesser known that I could pay less money to.
You're right. Yeah.
That's the way to go. Excuse me. By the end of the conversation, Alan said, hey, man, I'm in for a cover. I want to do an interior chapter. and I want to take one of these public domain characters that you've chosen and I want to recreate them for you.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there like on the phone and how do I say no to Alan Weiss?
You don't.
You don't. You don't.
Yeah.
So the next thing I knew, I had, excuse me, the perfect plan for my series.
Wow.
I was going to offer a cover, a chapter.
Yeah.
They get to pick the villain chapter, and whatever like superhero teaming up with our new Batman character, which is the Black Owl.
The Black Owl, yeah.
Right. So whoever was going to team up with the Black Owl, they would get to recreate them.
Wow.
Next thing I knew, I'm on the phone with guys like Bob Hall, Ron Wilson, Val Merrick, Arvell Jones. I mean, Alex Saviuk.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are legends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Absolute legends.
Yeah.
And I didn't stop there. I kept calling people, man. I reached out to Neil Adams's people.
Yeah.
I reached out and had a 15 email chain conversation with Steranko.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, I chatted online with Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I even reached out to John Byrne. And I mean, basically his people sent me like this 30-page contract.
Yeah.
And I'm reading through it. And I'm thinking, as I get to the end, I'm like, it pretty much just said, hey, if John wants to do this, he will. If he doesn't, he won't. I mean, it's pretty much that's what it came down to, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And God bless him that he's been able to do such an amazing amount of work, that he's been able to put himself in a position where he could be, you know, that picky about what he takes on.
100%, yeah.
Because I'm sure every Tom, Dick, and Harry like me wants John Byrne to work for him.
Yeah, yeah.
So
incredible, man. What a story. And man, as a fan of comics, right, you have this idea of maybe creating your own comic, and then it turns out that you're meeting all your heroes that you I mean, I just, you know, as a fan of comics, I just remember grabbing a comic book, sitting on the floor with a stack of them, you know, maybe 10 or something. And I remember all night just going through there. And then as you do that a few times, then you go through that stack again, right? And you end up reading like Death of Superman like 10 times. And then you start to really make these connections with these writers and artists and letters and inkers that it's hard to explain unless you've been lost in a comic book and forget where you're at. And then all of a sudden, all these years later, you're able to make these connections with these same people that wrote those comics and worked on those comics that you were lost in. The emotional ties and everything, I just can't imagine what those conversations were like the first time.
It's very similar. It's very similar to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm a big music guy.
Yeah.
And we all have that comic book that touched our soul.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
The story, the art, the whatever. We all have that album that touched our soul, or that musical artist that touched our soul. Yeah. So it's very similar. You know, the ability for a comic book writer and artist and everybody involved actually to be able to take you away. You know, I was before just so the fans out there know, before Tom and I went live, we were talking about the first page of Super Joe Unlimited, right, Tom? Was it before we started or after?
Yep. I think it was, right before.
Okay. So I just got the first page.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, the way I look at that page, we've got Stephen Butler on pencils and inks.
Yeah.
We have Jim Brown on colors. And we have Justin Birch on letters. All of those guys are getting their names on the cover of the comic books. Yeah. They are all equal when it comes to the art. You know, one of the things, you know, you look back at old comic books like this one, the new ones, the only reason I don't put everybody's name on the cover of the Masters, and I only put mine because it's Austin Huff's The Masters, right?
Yeah.
The only reason I do that is because I can't fit all 20 names on a cover because there's so many people in every book.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I look at what all these guys have done, it's like the lettering is so important. I'm holding it up right here, you know, looking at this thing. The lettering is so important.
Yeah.
The colors are so important.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. Like the first few pages of issue 2, are just crazy with the colors.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Rob Epps did the colors. Tom Morgan did the pencils and inks. Or no, Tom did the pencils, and Bob Ullman, who you mentioned earlier, did the inks. See, there's so many guys working on my comic books, I can't keep them all straight.
And they're all legends within the industry too.
They're all legends.
Blows me
they're
away.
All legends. If they're legends, they've won awards. They got enough. They got enough hardware to start a Home Depot. Okay, seriously, that's what these guys have. They're amazing. Wow. Yeah. And they're fantastic to work with. Yeah. Even the guys who weren't able to work with me, like there were a couple of guys who, man, if we didn't have bad luck working together, we would have had no luck at all. But we parted as friends, and it was like, you know what, it's just not working out right now. But I guarantee it'll work out in the future. So let's kind of like circle back later on another project. Just timing. Timing is everything in life, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, timing's everything. Timing is everything. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that is such. I know I get chills just thinking about it, and I'm very jealous of you to be able to see everything that you've accomplished just in 3 issues and the people that you've been able to work with to put that together. But it also goes to show the quality that you've put together in those first 3 issues and the reason why the quality is there, right? I mean, not only is the storytelling awesome, Austin, so congratulations on that, but every page you go through, it really does pop. The characters that have been developed or used are amazing. Some really fun ones from a villain side and obviously from a hero side. I can't wait to see who the team up is going to be in issue 4. But I mean, it's just, the colors are amazing. It just pops. Like you said, every page, obviously that first page is so important to kind of floor you, to get you excited about what you're about to get into. But then when you turn that page, right, it's equally as impressive. And just congratulations. I'm so happy for you. And I'm so excited to get it in my hands, because one thing reading it in like a PDF version, which is awesome because on my Apple computer, all the pictures pop, but to have that feel in your hands, turning each page, there's nothing like that in a comic book. I tell people all the time, I do read off the app sometimes, but there's nothing like holding a physical copy in your hand. And so I'll always be a physical copy guy.
Yeah, I'm a physical copy guy too. So here is like issue 2, cover A. Right. And then and this cover was done by Al Milgram and David Perrin. They did this cover. Wow. Colors by Mort Todd. Here is your Ron Wilson, Joe Rubenstein cover. I was able to
right there.
That's Airman, right?
Yeah, Airman.
I was able to corral Mike Vosberg, famous for doing G.I. Joe back in the day.
Yeah.
He did this. Absolutely. And just so your viewers understand, the masters, the villains, there's 5 villains, and they're all inspired by my favorite artists of the 20th century. So you have 5 villains that were inspired by Salvador Dali, Keith Haring, Toulouse-Lautrec, Rene Magritte, and famous black and white photographer Ansel Adams. And I put them together as a team, and what they're doing is they're each charged with stealing a different portrait painting in a different museum in the country. And they were brought together by this one very rich benefactor who is paying them all handsomely to do this, because he thinks that the paintings together hold some kind of a mystical, magical power for him. And of course, then the hilarity ensues, right? And Black Owl teamed up with Airman, Arrow, Twister, Plymo, and Flyman. All 6 of them are famous Golden Age superheroes. And when I put this together, Tom, I originally had the whole idea of, Batman with Green Arrow, Red Tornado, Hawkman, the Atom, and Elongated Man. Right? Those are like my favorite Brave and the Bold team-ups back in the day. So I swapped them out for Golden Age heroes, and we reimagined them. People said I should just create my own superheroes as well. But I thought, you know what? It's going to be hard enough to sell comic books with no characters that anybody knows. Right. It's hard enough to do it when the villains are unknown. Now I have to do it when the heroes are unknown as well. The whole point of it was going to be, it's my villains in the Batman universe.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was going to work very well. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And littered throughout, and I'm gonna show you guys some cool pages just so you see them.
Yes.
So littered throughout the book are all kinds of homages and tributes. We've got tributes to the old Hostess Twinkies and cupcake ads.
I saw that one. Yep.
Okay. So this was originally a Hawkman cupcake ad back in the late 70s. And of course, we swapped out Airman, who is our version of Hawkman.
Right. Yeah.
And basically,
That's so cool.
that's what I did. It's like I found a Daredevil ad that I put Black Owl in. There was a Plastic Man ad, and I swapped out our Plymo the Rubber Man, and so on and so forth. The other thing that we throw in here is I was a big fan of the Who's Who pages in the DC universe.
Yes. Yes.
So what we did was we did Who's Who pages for all of the heroes
and all the
villains.
Yeah.
All of the ancillary characters.
So cool, man.
And then when everything's done and we release the trade paperback, one of the add-ons will be an individual 16-page Who's Who comic itself.
Nice.
And the wraparound cover will be created by none other than Pablo Marcos, who did wraparound covers for the Who's Who back in the 80s.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's insane, man.
The other thing that I love, I was a big fan of this comic series called Marvel Fun and Games.
Mm.
And I believe it only lasted for 13 issues, maybe from like 79 to 80, something around there. And there was a guy named Owen McCarran that worked for Marvel that he would do, like, if you search these things out, you'll find that he drew a picture of Al Milgrom and he drew a maze in his face. You know, he had, like, you know, put the piece of Doc Ock back on Doc Ock and Scorpion on Scorpion, whatever, right?
Right.
So my dear friend Joe Woes of Maze Tunes, all this guy does is mazes. He's amazing. Emmy Award winning artist and TV show host, just fantastic. But he did a bunch of mazes for us. So there's the Plymo maze, and we have them all at the back of the comic. So here's the Black Owl.
I remember doing some of those in comic books too, man.
Right? And then here, of course, is the one from issue 1 where Black Owl is trying to get the Mona Lisa. You can see the Mona Lisa right there. From the Masters.
Yeah.
So I mean, totally fun and games.
Yeah.
And then of course the most important thing for me was I was able to bring my good friend Art Baltazar into the project, and he recreated an old Mego action figure ad that used to be in the comic books when we were kids. So he did this.
That's so awesome, man.
And if you notice on the bottom are all of my characters.
All your figures. Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Man.
And we did this for Figures Toy Company, as you can see on the bottom.
That is so awesome, man.
Yeah.
We got to figure out how we could get those made for real, man.
Well, I'm actually making them for backers of the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So they're available as a reward, and I'm having a hell of a time finishing them. I'm telling you, I thought the easiest thing I would have to do is to make the action figure, because I've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah, no.
I have had so many hiccups, paint application problems, 3D printing problems, clothing problems.
Wow.
But I'm close to getting them done. If you're a backer out there and I owe you a set, they're coming.
Yeah.
You can buy a set of the villains for $300. They're $60 a piece, so $300 for the set.
Yeah.
And I hand paint them, clothe them. They come in clamshell packaging where you can take them out and display them if you want. The whole 9 yards.
So cool, man. Man, you've done it all, man. Austin, you've thought of everything.
Well, I actually have all kinds more stuff coming out. I mean, this is my love letter to the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
So by the time we're done with this,
Yeah.
We're going to have 7-Eleven style Slurpee cups with our logos on them, all the different characters. We've already done a jigsaw puzzle, a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle.
Yep.
We've done a Ben Cooper Halloween mask of the Black Owl. We're going to do a 12-month wall calendar. We're going to do a tribute to the old Power Records record and comic book. And we're going to do the entire issue number 5 on vinyl. And we're going to attach the comic book. We've already got the art done. Chuck Patton did the art for it.
Oh, wow.
And I've got the voice actors hired. And we're going to record the whole thing and get that done and have a Kickstarter for that sometime next year as well.
That sounds like so much fun, man. You must be having a blast being able to recreate the past like this in the future. I mean,
that's Tom, that's the whole thing. It's like when I decided to do this, my thought process was go big or go home.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've stumbled a little bit, but every time I picked myself up, I've dusted myself off.
Yeah.
Because I looked at this project and I said, man, if this is the only thing I get to do, if this is my legacy, I'm going to do it exactly the way I want to.
Yeah, yeah. Good for you.
Thanks,
Good for you, man. Good for
Thanks.
you. Well, I mean, can we talk a little bit about Super Joe, right? So that's the Masters. That's under the Power Comics. Super Joe, is that a Kickstarter yet?
Please, Super Joe has already been a Kickstarter. We raised over $13,000 for it.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And we moved the Kickstarter over to Indiegogo.
Okay.
Because they let you keep going and adding on and all that good stuff. It's funny now that we're talking about Super Joe. Can I run and get something really quick?
Yeah, please. That would be awesome, Austin.
Maybe pause this with the viewers for just 1 second.
Yeah, you bet.
We just released something today for sale on the Indiegogo page as a reward. Okay. And I really want to show it to everybody. So hold that thought.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. That is awesome.
So these are, can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
So these are the custom cosplay wearable Super Joe Commander helmets.
Oh, I love it.
And we can't forget his evil enemy.
That is awesome, man.
Darkon.
That is so cool, man.
Hard to breathe in that.
Those look awesome, though.
So these are available. These are custom made. We're limiting them to 10 each.
Yeah.
If you buy one, it's yours for $495.
Yep.
Plus you get 3 comic books, 3 variant covers. There are 7 variant covers total.
Yeah.
If you buy both in the set, you get all 7 variant covers.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
And that's listed on our Indiegogo page. These things are insane. I mean,
it looks insane.
Tom, I've got a huge melon, and this thing fits my melon.
I love it, man. I love it. That is so awesome looking too. That is so cool, man.
So technically, we say they're for display.
Yeah.
But you know what, dude? If you really you could wear those to a con.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to make them fit your head nice and snug.
Yeah.
And the shield inside that comes out.
Okay.
We put the shield inside just basically for display reasons, because you're not going to want to look through the helmet at the back of it in a display shelf or a case.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
But Super Joe, man, I'm telling you, all your viewers, go over to Indiegogo and look up Super Joe Unlimited. Go to Kickstarter and look up the Masters.
Yeah.
Both are by Power Comics. Super Joe is, man, I really didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And boom, here it is. And we're super excited about it, I mean, back in the day, they created the Super Joe action figure line.
Yeah.
And it died a miserable, fast death in like a year.
Mm.
So there was no backstory about Super Joe, and it was a great line. I mean, it had light up action, and all articulation was great. The figures were really, really good. They were a little bit bigger than the Mego figures.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they just were lost in the shuffle somehow.
Yeah.
And we were able to get the license to do the comic from the guys who brought back the license to do the action figures.
Really?
Yeah, I reached out to them. Actually, they reached out to me, not to do a comic, but they're friends of mine.
Oh, okay.
And the one called me up and said, "Hey, man, you're not going to believe this, but I was able to get the Super Joe action figure license again, and I'm making figures."
That's so cool.
And it was so funny, Tom, because I was talking to a guy who had brought back another action figure line from the early 80s.
Really?
And I was talking to about doing a comic book for his toy line, and we just couldn't get it figured out.
Yeah.
And when my buddy Jason called me, I said, "Hey, I'd like to do Super Joe comic books."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I think that sounds great." And I said, "Well, how much do you want to license them?" He's like, "I just want some free comic books." Okay.
That work?
We can make that work, right?
I actually make comic books, so this is perfect.
Go figure. So we started working on this thing. And, I went out and I got Bob Hall to do the main cover, because Bob Hall did the cover for G.I. Joe #4 back in the day. And that's my favorite Joe cover. Or was it G.I. Joe #2?
One of those coming off the tank?
No, that was #1.
That was one. #2 was
where they're running up the hill.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's #4.
Yeah.
But regardless, the bottom line is, I already had a relationship with Bob Hall. He's done 4 pages for issue 5 of the Masters. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, man, do you remember when you did G.I. Joe?" And he's like, "Of course I do." I said, "Can you take the Super Joe action figures and can you make it into the comic book cover? I'll tell you where to place all the guys."
Yeah.
No problem. And
that's so cool.
And one of the 2 guys who brought back the Super Joe action figure line loved the cover so much, he's like, "I'll pay for you to get that cover made." So I basically got the cover for our comic book made and paid for by one of those guys.
That's so
and now
cool.
They have it hanging in their home, as a shrine, right?
Yeah.
And we got it colored and we put it out. Everybody thought that I had gotten the comic book license to G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, no, because I teased the old Bob Hall cover. I said, hey, we've got a big announcement coming.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I got a real American hero. It was because we're doing an homage to that cover.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of people, I got a lot of backlash. A lot of people, threatening my children's lives and all that good stuff. You know how the internet is. The internet's got an internet, Tom.
Yeah, I know it. And that has an internet too.
Correct. But one of the things that I took from all of the, we'll call it constructive criticism.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
was that there were some really passionate, real American hero fans out there from the comic book side.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? Because I really want these people to be involved in what I'm doing. I want them to like me and Power Comics and the content we're creating. I reached out to a good dozen different Joe comic book artists that stretch all the way back to the 80s.
Wow.
And I was able to bring in a bunch of guys. I brought in Jim Brown as our colorist because he colored probably close to 250 issues of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero.
Wow, yeah.
For IDW.
Yeah.
Brought in cover artists like Ron Joseph, Brian Shearer, Robert Atkins, and I even got a commitment from Larry Hama to do a cover.
Oh, wow. That would be huge.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a cover artist for G.I. Joe for IDW that lives here where I live in Hemet named Jamie Sullivan.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and every year we have a G.I. Joe Comic-Con or a G.I. Joe show in Temecula, which is a city not too far away. It happens sometimes twice a year.
Yeah, you're down in SoCal, right?
I'm in SoCal, yeah. So, G.I. Joe, you don't want to mess with G.I. Joe fans. So I think you did it right by bringing in all these amazing Joe fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We've already finished the covers. We've already finished the main Bob Hall cover. We took that cover, which was colored brilliantly by Mort Todd. He's done most of the coloring on the Masters. And, we wanted to bring out the whole 1982 vibe, because the figure line ended in 1979.
Yeah, that's wild. Only a year or so, huh?
Right, exactly. So we had Mort do the colors on that, but then I was able to get Jim Brown to recolor it as a variant with more colors that would be indicative of the Real American Hero stuff that IDW did.
Yeah.
And then we brought in, and Ron Joseph has done his cover, which was a tribute to an X-Men cover, which instead of the Wendigo, remember Wendigo? Mm-hmm. That big Sasquatch-looking abominable snowman?
Yeah.
We have the Gore on the cover and replacing him, and Jim colored that as well. Nitho Diaz, another Joe artist, contributed a cover.
Yeah.
And Robert Atkins just finished up his cover, which, you know what? It could be the best one of all of them. And I hate to say there's a best.
Yeah.
But it features my favorite action figure from the line, the Shield. And he is just storming at the reader with his shield. And reflecting in his shield is the Gore,
how cool.
the big Godzilla-like monster, right?
Yeah.
So, Brian Shear, his cover is supposed to be coming in the next week.
Yeah.
And, and then we have to make sure we get Mr. Hama to finish his. And you know what, man? I'll wait forever for his cover.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think everybody is with me on that because, Larry is so crucial to the whole genre.
I mean?
So however much time he needs to take, I'll mail those out separately. It doesn't matter. I'll pay the postage.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be working with him. It's an honor to be working with all these guys. And then, of course, we talked about Stephen Butler doing this awesome Batman cover tribute for the Masters.
Yeah,
he's doing all of the interior pages of Super Joe Unlimited.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I get chills thinking about it. That's pretty awesome, man.
Thanks.
Austin, man. It's incredible. So those are the two titles under Power Comics as of right now, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, those are two powerful titles. Man, if anybody's listening, you got to check it out. What's your website, Austin? That
Well,
people could go to? Like, is there a website where they could go to, or?
well, the best place to go, and we'll link some stuff in the description when we're done.
Absolutely.
The best place to go is to just do a search for Power Comics.
Okay.
On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But specifically, go and search Power Comics on Kickstarter and Indiegogo and support us. You know, it's so easy, everybody, to click like or click follow or whatever. You know what, man? If you really do like the stuff, if you really want us to keep creating like we're doing, like Tom does, like I do, like so many of our friends do, you know, just go over to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Zoom. Yeah. I mean, we have stuff as low as like $5 or $10, a digital copy. You don't have to spend $1,000 on a piece of art from Mike Grell, but we'd like you to.
Yeah, it's there if you want to.
It's there if you want to. But seriously, if 1,000 people gave me $10 for digital copies, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good day.
Right, Tom?
Yeah, I'd be very happy myself.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking for. We love the likes. Don't get us wrong. We like being the popular kid in school. Yeah. But you know, we want to keep doing this. We want to get rid of our day jobs. We all have day jobs.
Yep.
And we're all tired of our day jobs. I'm 54 and I'm tired of my day job. I want this to be my day job. Yeah. So please 100%. Support us, folks. I promise you will not be disappointed. Not with the content that we are producing.
100. No, there's no doubt. I mean, just from what I've seen from the Masters, no doubt about it. Can't wait to get my Joe comic, and because that will be the next thing that will.
Did you back the Joe comic yet?
No, I'll go on Indiegogo.
Oh, you need to go and get a set of these helmets. Just in time for Halloween, Tom.
Just in time, man. Just in time. Look at that thing. That thing is awesome.
So what I really want to do with these things is I want to get another guy to go out with me, and we just start filming videos like of us eating breakfast or something with helmets on, right?
I love it.
Or we're like walking our dog, and we're just arguing like a couple of, you know, an old married couple.
Yeah.
Well, Mom always liked you best, or whatever.
Yeah.
Funny stuff, right?
I love it, Austin. I love it, man. Incredible stuff, man. Like I said, if anybody's listening, Kickstarter for the Masters, Indiegogo for Super Joe, both of those are ready for you to make your purchases. How many more days do you have left on the Kickstarter?
10 days. So next Friday at midnight, October 27th.
So you got
buy early and buy often.
Yes, exactly. Well, Austin, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on, man. Super excited to get your comics. Fan for life now. I'm sorry I didn't know of everything that you're doing sooner, but I'm glad that I found it. And man, incredible stuff. Appreciate everything you're doing to bring back wholesome, amazing, fun, just get lost in the comics style stories that I could give my kids and I don't have to worry about it. I love that.
Friendly.
It's absolutely incredible.
Kid friendly, and these are great things to read with your kids too.
Yeah,
if you know the characters, if you know who they're based off of, like those famous artists I told you about, you could say, wow, well, it's an educational tool. To me, these comic books could be sold at the Art Institute of Chicago and be used as an educational tool, because hey, look at this guy was inspired by Keith Haring. Let's take a look at what he did in his life. Right? So they're educational, they're kid friendly, they're just traditional superhero, supervillain comics. They're for everybody.
They're awesome, man.
Do you know what I say at the end of every interview, Tom?
What's that, Austin?
Power up.
Power up, baby. Power up.
Power up.
I love it, Austin. Well, Austin, thank you so much. I hope we could have you come back again, because I know you're going to be busy. I know issue 4 is coming out. And then I don't know what you're doing with the Masters after that, but whatever you do, I would love for you to come back and share it with all of our viewers, because I think they need to know, and everybody needs to know what you're doing.
We've got issue 5 after issue 4.
Perfect.
And that's going to tie up the series. And then after that, we come out with the Kickstarter for the trade paperback and the trade hardcover.
Awesome.
And those will have a special issue number 0,
Ooh.
which gives you pretty much the prologue to the Masters, the story behind the story.
Nice.
And everything will be included in that trade. So you'll have all the who's who in there. You'll have all the variant covers.
Wow.
You'll have all of the artist bios. You'll have all of the hostess ads. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So that's going to come out after issue 5. We should have the issue 5 Kickstarter up before Christmas.
Okay.
And hopefully everybody will have issue 4 before issue 5 Kickstarter ends.
Yeah.
It's I've only got a few pages left to do, and then it's out of the printer. So we might have it printed before we even get the money from Kickstarter.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, that's incredible. So everybody get out on the Kickstarter. Make sure all you got to do is type in Power Comics and it'll pop right up. I've done it several times. So Austin, thank you so much for being with us. And I can't wait to have you on again.
And what do we say at the end of the interview, Tom?
Power up, everybody.
Power up.
Thank you very much, Austin. Have a good one, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. Be well.
You will. You as well.